Um, Eric, thank you so much for helping with my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Eric Allen. I work at Dynaqual Test Labs. We're a reliability test lab, so we do things like shock, vibration, thermal testing, pressure testing, and then also Halt and Hass testing, which is more to do with life cycle testing on boards, components, that type of thing.
And where are you located?
We're right in Houston, Texas, on the north side of town. So we're on the other side from our space buddies down there at NASA Parkway.
I was looking up your company, and it looked to be close to me. I live on
Okay.
over here in 249 and
Yeah.
Spring
Yeah.
Cypress area. So
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about where we started this company in November of 2011. So we're coming up here on our 9th anniversary. It started out mainly catering to oil and gas, obviously, as many companies do in this region, and that was the majority of our testing was with oil and gas companies. But as we've come along and met new people, we're definitely getting more into aerospace, transportation, biomedical. So I always tell people I've tested everything from ankle bracelets to things that go 10,000 feet down and things that go 100,000 plus feet up. So
that's awesome. I have a North Houston Space Society chapter that we are run, and we have monthly meetings. We went on
okay.
a tour of nanoracks in
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
and we could talk about it maybe some other point, but I would be interested in seeing about arranging a tour of your testing facility and what all y'all do at some point.
No, that would be great. And I got my nano rack sticker here. They were just here for some testing on one of their CubeSats, and they're good friends of ours. And yeah, they're doing some amazing stuff. The president of the company, Bob Joyce, and I were actually down there in February before all this pandemic started. So we got to see the tour of the facility as well. And they're moving fast, that's for sure. But yeah, we'd love to have the chapter come here, and I'd love to learn more about the chapter as well.
Yeah, we're just really out there trying to educate people about the opportunities that we have. I mean, from my standpoint, it feels like the 2020s are going to be to space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet. Talk to
Yeah.
somebody in 1990 about email and web page and
Yeah.
online shopping, and they'll just scratch their head. And then by
Yeah.
like 2000, they're like, yeah, of course, everybody does that, you know?
Yeah. Well, we hope so. I mean, we're like I said, we're definitely seeing a big push on the testing side as everyone's trying to get in line.
When did you find out that NASA was planning to go back to the moon in 2024?
Well, I guess the main way that we found out, of course, was through the big announcements that they push out, and political or not they may be. Just the drive to go to the moon was obviously an exciting one, both since, like I said, Bob, our founder and president here, he remembers watching, the original moon missions, and I'm a little too young for that. But of course, going up to space and being part of something that big and massive and on a world scale is very exciting. And so when we heard about that, and we started getting calls from people trying to figure out if we'd be able to do launch qualifications, that's when it was like, oh, they're gearing up for something. And then of course the announcement came out with the 2024 projected date for back to the moon, and things really started picking up from there.
That's awesome. And what do you think about it? I mean, aside from the business aspects, which I totally
Yeah.
get that, but just from whenever you think about the future of humanity aspects, and also maybe all the other challenges we have in terms of the economy and
Right.
global warming and health.
Yeah. Well, so two things I guess I would say about that. First thing is, so I was born in Canada, so I'm very proud of the Canada arm up on the ISS anyway. But being down here and being an immigrant and an American citizen now, being part of something, especially locally here in Houston, of course, that we're always proud of having Space Center here, and the big part that Houston has played in the space race, and now, of course, the missions back to the moon. It's something to take pride in. And business part aside, it's just exciting to be around the activity and the technology that is gearing up to get people back there. I think it's something that a lot of people can take pride in, and you see it in the faces of the engineers that are working on this stuff. I mean, they're tired, but that's because they're working on so many different things. But you can tell there's just a pride to what they do that you don't see in too many other places. And so I'm hoping, especially now in 2020 and what society at large is dealing with, we can get behind that and really gear up together as a country, and then of course as a world effort to join together with them.
But when you think about space exploration, I mean, you have sort of like the inspiration and the pride part. Uh, are there any like tangible benefits that you're hoping we get out of it?
Well, of course, I think hopefully the discoveries that there may be able to get. I think some of that stuff's still hypothetical, theoretical even, but I'm hoping that there'll be a lot of advances that we can gather from it. And I think we just have to wait and see what those would be. But that's really what I'm hoping for, is just the medical advances and other technology advances that we can make from these missions.
And do you see us as mainly always living on Earth, just making these little exploratory trips, or when you think about the future of humanity, do you really see us expanding beyond Earth? Like how do you think it might unfold?
I don't know if there'll be an Alpha Centauri, but I think that there'd be people that would sign up to do it. Uh, I don't know how colonization will look. I can't say that I'm a bull market on it right now, just because when you talk to these guys and how 0% failure has to be what the answer is, right? And they do everything to try and overcome any kind of hindrance to that. I think it's just going to be really difficult to try and have someone in some other living. So at this time, no, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, there's pretty much no
I think
other.
that living in space, though.
I was just gonna say there's pretty
Sorry, I
much.
said I think living in space, though, like they do with ISS. Yeah.
I'll let you go first.
Sorry, I was just saying that. But I think projects like the Gateway, ISS, and then of course the mission to Mars is going to prove otherwise. And maybe after that, I'll change my tune.
And it's really funny because pretty much in no other endeavor in that humans are involved in do we really go for like 100% safety, right? I mean, even airlines, we accept a certain level of catastrophe.
Right.
So I mean, and whenever it comes to space, it seems for us to actually move out, we're going to have to lower that bar a little bit and accept the repercussions of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and along those lines, it's as all these commercial companies start gearing up to go to the moon per se, or even into orbit, commercial flights, I think that you will try to see the government, of course, NASA and these other space agencies, trying to hold on to that rigor as much as possible. But I think as you get more commercial companies into it, unfortunately, I think that margin will expand, even though they'll do as much as they can to limit that. And so that's where, like from our perspective, of course, reliability testing is huge. But at the same time, when you're thinking about the human lives that are that far away, I hope that people take that same initiative to try and do as best as they can and strive for that excellence instead of trying to cut corners. So.
Yeah, it's difficult to know what's really important from a safety standpoint and what's kind of like a nice to have. It's like where do
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get into reliability testing? If somebody else was interested in kind of following your footsteps, what would that look like?
Well, honestly, the reliability testing thing, there's a couple ways you can do it. Of course, it's working with an actual company that does reliability testing in-house. And so a lot of companies, of course, have quality engineers, reliability engineers, those kind of things. We're a little different because we're an independent test house. So being an independent reliability lab, we basically provide the testing apparatus for people to do the reliability testing. And ultimately, we provide an input and an output for that testing. And the engineers, the quality engineers, the production engineers, the program engineers come to us for that calibrated input output. So here it's basically like you're coming in for a service. We're a testing service company. So we don't have like the quality engineers and the reliability engineers here, because those people are the ones coming in to get the data that we're providing. We're more of a data and service related company. So we have engineers here on staff, obviously, and we have test technicians that perform the testing. And of course, I'm more on the business development side, but in a small company like ours, everyone does everything here. So as far as getting into something like this, you have two routes. It's either find an independent to work at and do reliability testing that way, or partnering with an organization like NASA. I mean, they send their quality guys here to observe all the testing, of course. Like one of the contractors, Lockheed Martin, Jacobs, the others, Boeing, all have their own reliability testing arms. Or else there's, of course, national labs, like the national test labs, which they basically on the large scale do exactly what we do. We're just smaller, independent, and so we're able to get a more of a niche market than they would necessarily be able to do, because economics, and we're able to turn a little faster than they are.
And your test equipment, is it mainly produced by other people, or do you all had to develop some of your own test equipment to?
So a lot of our testing is pretty, do you want a vibration test? So we have vibration tables, which again, depending on the different launch qualification you're doing or transportation qualification, they have to provide a different output. And so we have software that does all that, and we give them what they're looking for. There is custom testing that we do at times. A lot of that has to do more with, a customer wants to see if their product will survive X. And so drop testing, for example, they're all different. And the way that you drop test, you can get a drop tester that will lift it up and drop it. Or, there's different ways to do it. Like some tests just say, drop it from 1 meter on a concrete surface, and measure any damage. And so in that kind of situation, we'll record it, and we'll capture any data that is available at that during that test. So a lot of our stuff is test apparatuses that are available commercially, that smaller companies obviously wouldn't be able to afford, or it wouldn't make sense to them for their one-off tests. Like we do a lot of testing that they maybe are part of one project, and then we won't see them again for another 6 months, maybe a couple of years. So it makes no sense for them to have the kind of testing apparatus that we have.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when you consider all the calibration and interpreting the results and, all this expertise around that you need too.
Right.
Now, I know that the Orion capsule went to Plum Brook for some, thermal vacuum testing and other things like that. And I was wondering, what's the largest type of thing that you can test? Is there some limitations that you have?
Yeah, so a lot of it is dependent, and you saw our website there, is dependent on the size of the test article, and weight plays into it too. We've tested items inside of our Halt chamber, which is a 4 foot by 4 foot chamber capable of going -100 and plus 250 degrees Celsius in 70 degree per minute swings, and then also vibe at the same time. So that's like a total life cycle test. So it's doing heat and vibe at the same time, really trying to wear the product down. We've been able to test large tail kits in the back in that thing. So just a giant, 4 foot apparatus in there. And you have to think about fixturing too. So once you put a large apparatus in and then you attach aluminum fixtures to it, you tend to get a lot of weight. So we have to think about the weight, and then we have to think about the footprint that it can make too. So on our vibe tables, we have a 3 foot by 3 foot table, and then we also have a 5 foot by 2 foot table. And so the articles have to fit inside of that, or at least close to inside of that, in order to get the desired output that the customer is looking for their qualification test. So we are limited in a little regard to the size. We're not doing these giant solar arrays and that kind of thing, unless they can be broken up. So it all depends on what the spec asks for. For example, um, on some of the Orion project stuff that we've worked on, we're doing the component testing for a much larger part of the Orion project, right? We're not doing the heat shields. We're just doing a part of something that maybe goes behind it, right?
That makes sense. And you mentioned temperature and vibration. How about in terms of like vacuum and pressure and that type of thing?
So we have a hyperbaric chamber. We don't yet have a thermal vac chamber, which is what we really want to get by the end of the year. That's on my must-haves, just because of the people. Of course, everyone needs it, and we're hoping to be the first independent lab here in Houston to have it. Because unfortunately, right now everyone has to fly out to California or one of the national test labs and other places to get thermal vac done, and so that's our biggest hit item to be completed this year, so that we can be even more competitive, but at the same time help, because honestly, we're not really Johnson Space Center and their test lab. They don't really compete because they just have to do all the testing. They're looking to outsource, and by government contract, they have to now. So we're just here to try and help supplement the testing that's already going on there, as long as it can fit on our tables and we can meet the spec that they're looking for. So hopefully, when we do acquire thermal vac, that we'll just add to that suite of services.
That is pretty neat. I was also thinking, I understand like in the like orbital environment and on the moon and stuff, electrostatic charge and discharge is
Mhm.
a big concern as well. I mean, is that something that you test for too?
So EM testing is, or EMI testing is something that's very specific, and we do not offer that. We'd love to put an EMI lab in here with all the cones, and I haven't been in one, but I hear that when you go in one, it's so quiet you can hear your blood flowing. So that's where those EM labs, the cost of them is extremely high, and so we just don't have that in our goals currently to put one in. But we do get calls for EMI testing all the time, and unfortunately, we don't have that here at Dynaqual. But
That's
it is a huge thing, and we do get requested for it.
that is pretty amazing. I just had no idea that we had such a facility so close to us here in North Houston. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, and that's the biggest thing is again, most of our customer base is and was oil and gas, and so we've tested for all the majors in oil and gas, of course. But in the last 3 years, we've really been growing our market segment in aerospace, and so where it used to be about 95% oil and gas and 5% other, we're now about 30% other, and still about 70% oil and gas. But that number, I'm sure this year's going to change just with the different projects we're adding already. So,
You know, one of our North Houston Space Society members was a project manager for a offshore oil company, and then he got laid off, and now he's working at Blue Origin. So I think
oh yeah, yeah.
that's kind of I was wondering if you've seen a lot more shifts from like the people you know and what have you going from oil and gas over to aerospace.
So the people that I have met that have done it love it because they don't like the cyclical nature of oil and gas. So I have seen quite a few people that either have experience at one of the majors and then have switched over to aerospace, and it's not as common as you think. But right now, especially like on LinkedIn, etc., I'm sharing all kinds of aerospace jobs I can find. Of course, just trying to get as many of the laid off employees positions as possible. So it happens, and I know probably 3 or 4 guys that have actually come through our doors testing that used to work for oil and gas, and so when they are in here and they see maybe one of the test apparatus we have, they're like, "Oh, I know what that is," Uh, it starts a conversation because again, we do have a lot of connections in that realm as well.
That's really neat. Yeah, I think going to the trend of the 2020s being to space exploration as the 1990s were to the internet. You're going to see a lot of people make the transition to aerospace over the next
Yeah,
decade.
I
Um,
hope so.
So if it was safe and affordable, and you probably could quantify that safe part way more than a lot of my other interviewees, would you take a trip to space?
Yeah, for sure. I think the affordable part would probably be more constraint to me, and I only say that because, like I said, I've seen the kind of hoops that people jump through for reliability with these kind of projects, and I know the rigors of people observing and making sure it's done exactly right and precise every time. That I think it would be more about cost because the way that they, if there's one little thing that is different about the TPS, then they need to go back and get it checked and re-verified. So um, that's why I think it would probably be more a cost prohibitive to me than it would be the reliability or safety of it. I would go in a heartbeat.
How far would you consider going, like a suborbital flight or a week in orbit or 2 weeks to the moon and back or, a multi-year
Yeah,
journey to Mars and back? Like how how far?
it's funny. We were at visiting some of our friends on one of our previous projects worked on for the Orion program down there at Johnson Space Center, and we took a tour, and the guy was gracious enough to show us around and take us through. He even took us over to the pool, which is off the tour now, and so that was great to see the ISS mock-up underneath, and then they had the Orion for the splashdown test sitting there on the deck as well. So that was cool to see all that, and we were talking about the Gateway program, and it was myself and Bob that went down there, and we were talking about the how long it would take to get to Mars, the 9 months there, 9 months back, or whatever it is, and Bob was saying, yeah, it'd be a lot of backgammon to make that trip, but he would sign up in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. So I think for me, I would be fine with maybe doing a moon and around. I think it'd be great to go on the Gateway just to hang out and live there for a little bit. But I don't think the suborbital would be as exciting as actually being up there for a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you did like the Blue Origin New Shepard, you're looking at a 15-minute ride. And
Right.
if you did like the Virgin Galactic, maybe you're looking at an hour or so. So it's like
I
a
mean,
lot
I
of money.
wouldn't turn it down if I got a seat, but I would love to be up there for maybe a little bit of time.
So I kind of envision these videos as being like a time capsule for people in like 2100 or so, looking back at this pre-new space age period. And
Wow.
I kind of envision, like a high schooler having to do a report about what were people thinking, before the new space age. And if you could talk to that high schooler, what were some things today that you would like to point out? Or
Wow. Uh, I think the biggest thing that I would say is, find a market that you're willing to push yourself into and explore that just the same way that people are exploring the technology that they're designing today for tomorrow. And so if you're sitting in a high school desk right now, maybe they don't even have desks then. If you're hooked up to the computer and it's giving you all the input you need, then hopefully that means that you're pushing yourself towards something that leads to the next discovery. And I think that that person needs to know that that next discovery is out there. It's just waiting for you to find it.
well, I really appreciate it, Eric, for your time, and I thank you for the work you do. I definitely want to see about setting up a tour sometime
Oh yeah, please
after
do. Yeah,
this Corona thing gets past us. So,
hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, for sure, shoot me an email, and you can come by anytime. We're of course all masked up when we're in the lab and around people, but yeah, I would love to set that up.
well, thank you so much, Eric, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Will do. Bye.